Hey everyone, this is Nobody. This is going to be a short reaction video to the recent release of the gameplay trailer of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. I don't normally do these kinds of videos, but there's a lot of big news happening in the community, so if you guys like this kind of content, then I'll be happy to do more of these news and notes kinds of videos or reaction videos in the future. So please let me know if you'd like to see more of this content. Without further ado, let's take a look at the gameplay trailer.
Do you remember a time when armies were built and powerful cities collapsed? When the smallest of choices echoed through the pages of history. It was an age of empires.
All right. So already we have our first look at the gameplay of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. Apologies, I'm doing this off of the YouTube video. But what you can see from the snapshot, you see a lot of reworked terrains, reworked unit designs. What looks to me, it's kind of hard to tell, but it might be a completely new game engine. Certainly the collapsed buildings here is something completely unique. And with something that was kind of foreshadowed, one of the most popular Reddit posts is someone posting a 3D rendering of a building collapsed, and that's something the developers obviously took to heart. So a lot of updated graphics. I have to say the terrains look very good, in my opinion. Perhaps a little bit more detail on the water. There's, of course, a fine balance here. You kind of want it to look like the original Age of Empires 2 and still look a little bit better than the original Age of Empires 2 as well. Needs the motivation to purchase a new product. So I would say overall did a pretty good job with that. It does have a little bit of a different feeling. I really love the architecture and the detail on the architecture. I really love that for the most thing that I love most. The trees, something about it that just gives off a they still kind of look a little bit flat, a little bit lacking in maybe little bit of depth. You can kind of see the outline of the tree, for example, going around over here. So that's kind of something that sticks out to me. The detail on the trebuchets is really great, and the detail on a lot of the units is really good. However, one problem that I would like to point out is that for a lot of the Age of Empires 2 HD mods that change your units to like more modern units, one of the things that I disliked, one of the things that I think makes Age of Empires 2 so great is that you can pretty much look at a unit and very much distinguish it from other kinds of units. And I probably can only do that because I've had a lot of game experience. I could tell that this is a champion. This is also probably a champion. This could either be a crossbowman, most likely, crossbowman, or a Genoese crossbowman. Both those models look kind of similar. And then I kind of have to assume that this is a new unique unit. There's no unit in Age of Empires 2 that has a spear like that. So I think it would have been good to show some of the regular Age of Empires 2 units in the first shot here. That way, you kind of have a reference for something to go off of. So I'm a little bit wishy-washy on whether I like the new design for the units. I think they need to be a little bit more distinguishable, but there's a lot of advantages to this as well. So let's continue with the trailer. Obviously, this is the second part that we have of the gameplay. There's only about 3 or 4 parts here that I could show you. That's why I'm breaking down each one of them. Once again, you kind of see a lot of the new detail on the buildings, on the units, on the terrains. Again, the terrains look pretty good. Could perhaps have a little more detail on the rubble. The watchtower stands up pretty nicely from the trees. The fires in a classic Age of Empires design doesn't make any sense, but that's part of the game. Farms look good as well, certainly a lot better than the default ones. And once again, I would bring it back. 2 things that I noticed might not be as easy for you. The animations on the units. Take a look here. As they're starting to attack. Oops. They only give you so many seconds on these. So hopefully you can see some of the animations there. You kind of want them to have a little bit of oomph to them. You know, I need a little bit more to go off of that. Hopefully, you know, be able to feel that a little bit more. but you don't want it to kind of feel flat. It kind of, in a way, does remind me of the Age of Empires 1 game, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on if you have seen the most recent Age of Empires 1 Definitive Edition. You don't want it to look exactly the same. You certainly want it to have a more distinctive feel. And once again, kind of hard to distinguish which units are which. We have some, I can't even tell from this angle, some probably Huskarls, but again, it's really hard to tell. Maybe it's a new unique note, but you'd have to think these are Huskarls. The Huskarl in the original game has a little bit of a bigger shield. This is more of a realistic shield. These are pretty obviously light cav, pretty good design on that. And I would assume some Cavaliers and some Champions. And perhaps some longswordsmen. It looks like that's a little shield there, but it doesn't really come out from the figure as much. So a little bit lack of distinguishability between the units. The design of the original Age of Empires 2 is very kind of cartoony. Some of it doesn't make any sense. For example, the Huskar has a shield that is about the size of his own body. A lot of things like quirky things like that. But again, all the units stand out from one another, and I hope that's something that will receive a little bit more polish as we get closer to release. And it just goes right past that. So fully remastered audio. I think audio is one of the most important things in a game myself. I'm someone who very much appreciates a good soundtrack or good audio. Someone that comes from a classical music training and background. But as far as game design goes, if you actually look at some of the... Everyone knows the original Age of Empires 2 magic as being very nostalgic. We've had some remasterings of the soundtracks done by Vitalis Eric. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, which are very powerful. Hope some of that makes it into the game. But one thing that I'd like to point out is that some of the original critiques of Age of Empires 2 was that the audio design was not very good. And there are some reasons why you can say that that might be the case. For example, there's only 2 melee unit kind of sounds for melee units. There's the swords clanking sounds, and there's the sound where a scout or a villager attacks. And that's not very many different options for all the different kinds of units you have in the game. So on the one hand, it sounds like they're optimizing what sounds they have available. If you listen a little carefully, you could hear the cannon sounds are different and certainly a little more distinctive. So I hope that they optimize them, but also it might be something to consider to add new things to the game, and that's always a tricky area. Add new sounds that might fit within the scope of the game. This screenshot, I have nothing to complain about this. Just buildings, trees, terrain, water is absolutely beautiful. Tons of detail. And it's a good shot to use as well. This is a classic shot from one of the Age of Conquerors campaigns. I wish they used a little bit more of this in the trailer as opposed to the new stuff. So a whole new campaign. I have very little to say about this. This was a good choice. If you, well, actually, less of the cons. I would assume it means Genghis Khan, but maybe it's an Indian campaign. This kind of looks like Indian architecture. So that would be either way, that would be a good choice for a campaign to do. I have no opinion on this because it really just depends on the quality of the campaign. If they're going to add maybe some new things to the campaign. Some different design choices with the missions that are a little bit different. A lot of the Age of Empires 2 missions are pretty similar. I'm just curious to see how much effort they put into it, how the voice acting is. I hope they redo the voice acting. At least for the newer stuff. The old stuff is classic. But yeah, we'll see how the quality of that is. And once again, going back, I can tell pikeman, Halb could stand out a little bit more. Looks like the axes could stand out a little bit more, make it a little more distinctive. Group of archers, can't tell exactly what kind of archer. I think that was a war wagon, although I'm not really sure. Maybe it's a new unit. Kind of a guy with a pike, a chariot thing. That's kind of interesting. How do you remaster a war wagon? A war wagon makes pretty little sense about how the arrow comes out of the thing. Are they just going to keep it as is, the silly way, or are they going to make it more realistic? Siege Onagers obviously here. Probably a new unit. It does look very similar to the AoE2 HD mods that you can get. So the developers probably took a little bit of influence from that. Took a lot of influence from that. And some heavy cavalry archers there. And of course, very short snippet, so I have to pause it here. But great destruction of the Wonder. Looks great. We have some war elephants. Uh, Obviously, a elephant archer, a monk, which looks exactly the same. Looks exactly the same to the original game. So good on that. I would like to see more things matching exactly. The proportions of the elephant are obviously a little different. The elite battle elephant, elephant archer looks exactly the same. This is obviously a camel archer. This is what I'm talking about, making the units distinctive. That's something that I very much want to see. And again, another classic shot. This is from the Saracen campaign, the first mission. So again, another great classic shot showing some of the beauty of the original game. And yeah, and that's the end of the trailer. So I'd like to go back here again. Some good, some bad. Um, I wouldn't say some bad, but I think I just need to see some more. I'm a little bit wishy-washy on the unit designs, but as far as the buildings go, as far as I think the trees go and the textures, and certainly a lot of the detail in the buildings is astounding. Really looks great. I hope it plays almost exactly the same as far as mechanics go. A little well too. Some of the mechanics feels exactly the same as the original Age of Empires 2. I hope they add some things as far as maybe like adding as far as voice acting or voice acting even for when clicking on a unit, that kind of thing, or new attack sounds would be something where they can add. And I don't think there'd be too much problems with that. And again, making units look distinctive is a very important thing. And in this case, just follow Age of Empires 2's original design as closely as possible. The monk looks great. Heavy camel looks a little bit different. Uh, Obviously, war elephant looks a lot different, but the elephant archer and the camel archer look very different. So I would try to stay as close as possible to that. And if they do that, I think that the game, at least by how it looks, will be pretty good. So anyway, that's going to be my quick reaction to this trailer. Certainly, if you'd like to see more of these kinds of reactions, then let me know. Otherwise, I won't be doing too many more of these, and regular content coming on Saturday and Sunday. Hope you enjoy. We'll be doing Capture Age next week. See you soon.